The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. It pounded the warped wooden roof of the old house in Terre Haute, Indiana, like it was trying to break in. Inside, the air was thick with damp and the sour tang of cheap whiskey. James Carver sat slumped on a ratty brown sofa, his boots propped on a milk crate that doubled as a coffee table. A half-empty bottle of Jack Daniels dangled from his right hand, the amber liquid sloshing every time he shifted. His gray t-shirt clung to his chest, soaked from a stumble through the downpour earlier, and his dark hair stuck to his forehead in wet clumps. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling buzzed and flickered, casting jagged shadows across the room. He'd been at it for an hour, maybe 2. Hard to tell when the world outside was a gray smear of water and thunder. The fight with Sasha still burned in his gut, hotter than the booze. She'd caught him texting some shady guy from Detroit, a hustler who promised to clean the cash they'd swiped from Victor a month back. James hadn't told her about it, figuring he'd handle it solo, keep her out of the mess. But Sasha wasn't the type to miss shit. She'd snatched his phone mid-text, her dark eyes narrowing as she read the screen. "You're still playing games, huh?" She'd snapped, her voice sharp like a blade. "What, you think I'm too dumb to know when you're hiding something?" "It's not like that, Sasha," he'd shot back, standing up from the sofa so fast the milk crate skidded. "I'm trying to fix this, for us." "Fix it?" She'd laughed, bitter and loud, her curls bouncing as she shook her head. "You're texting some asshole behind my back and that's fixing it? You don't trust me, James, never have." She'd thrown the phone at his chest. He caught it and stormed out, slamming the flimsy door so hard it rattled the hinges. He'd heard the Impala's engine roar to life, tires squealing as she peeled out into the rain. Probably headed to Malik's spot downtown to talk about her next underground fashion gig. She'd been pouring everything into those shows lately, stitching late into the night, turning scraps into art. It was her way of clawing out of the hole they'd fallen into since Detroit. James tipped the bottle back, letting the whiskey burn down his throat. "Fuck," he muttered, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. He didn't mean to screw it up with her. Sasha was the only real thing he had left after his whole damn life imploded. $1 million penthouses traded for this leaky shack. His family's fortune gone when they cut him off for brawling in that McDonald's and running off with her. She'd saved him that night, pulled him out of Victor's hellhole with her fierce-ass spirit. And now he'd gone and pissed her off again. The room spun a little as he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. He should have gone after her, but his legs felt like lead, and the whiskey was winning. The TV in the corner flickered static. Cable was out, thanks to the storm, and the only sound was the rain hammering the windows and that damn bulb buzzing overhead. He took another swig, the bottle lighter now, and let his head drop back against the sofa. Maybe she'd cool off and come back. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, he was stuck here, drowning in his own dumbass choices. A knock at the door jolted him upright. 3 sharp raps, loud enough to cut through the storm. "Sasha?" he called, voice rough from the liquor. No answer. He hauled himself up, swaying a bit, and shuffled to the door, bottle still in hand. He yanked it open, expecting her rain-soaked glare, but it wasn't her. Lena Voss stood there, water dripping off the hood of her long black coat, her red hair plastered to her cheeks like streaks of fire. She held a bottle of bourbon in one hand, the label peeling at the edges, and her green eyes glinted under the porch light. "Hey, big shot," she said, her voice smooth and low, like she was sharing a secret. "Rough night, huh? Saw your girl peel out like a bat out of hell." James blinked, brain sluggish. "Lena? What the hell you doing here?" She stepped closer, the scent of rain and something sweet, like vanilla, hitting him as she brushed past into the house without waiting for an invite. "Heard you two were laying low out here. Figured you might need a friend." She turned, coat sliding open just enough to show a tight red dress hugging her curves, The kind of outfit that didn't belong in a dump like Terre Haute. You gonna let me stand here dripping or what? He shut the door, leaning against it for balance. How'd you even find us? She smirked, setting the bourbon on the milk crate. Word gets around, James. You're not as off the grid as you think. She peeled off her coat, tossing it over a chair, and damn if she didn't look like she'd walked out of some high roller club instead of a Midwest rainstorm. That dress clung to her like a second skin, low cut enough to show the tops of her breasts, pale and perfect against the crimson fabric. Her hair, wet as it was, still fell in waves that made him stare longer than he should have. I don't need company, he said. But it came out weak, his tongue thick from the whiskey. He took a step back toward the sofa, bottle swinging in his grip. Sure you do. Lena grabbed the bourbon, unscrewed the cap, and poured a splash into a chipped mug she found on the counter. You're sitting here drinking alone like some sad sack. Where's that King of Detroit vibe you used to have? She handed him the mug, her fingers brushing his, and sat down on the sofa, crossing her legs so the dress rode up her thigh. Come on, sit. Tell me what's up. He shouldn't have. And he knew it even through the haze. Knew Lena was trouble, the kind of woman who could talk you into anything and leave you broke by morning. He'd seen her around the bar scene in Terre Haute, always working an angle, always with some guy trailing her like a lost puppy. But his head was swimming, and the room was too damn quiet without Sasha's voice cutting through it. So he sat, mug in one hand, Jack in the other, and took a sip of the bourbon. It hit harder than the whiskey, smooth but fierce, like Lena herself. She's pissed, he said finally, staring at the mug. Caught me texting some guy about the cash. Thinks I don't trust her. Lena leaned in, close enough he could feel the heat off her. Sasha's a firecracker, huh? All that attitude. Bet she keeps you on your toes. Her hand landed on his knee, light at first, then firmer. But you're James fucking Carver. You used to own half a city. You don't need to be sneaking around like some punk. He snorted, tipping the mug back. Used to. That's the key word. Now I'm just the idiot who can't keep his shit together. Nah. She shifted closer, her thigh brushing his, voice dropping low. You're still that guy. I see it. You just need someone to remind you. Her hand slid up his leg, slow and deliberate, and his breath hitched. He should have stopped her. Hell, he wanted to. But the whiskey had dulled the edges of his brain, and she was too damn close. Too damn pretty. Those green eyes locked on his, promising something he hadn't felt in months. Power, escape, anything but this suffocating guilt. Lena, don't, he muttered. But it sounded like a plea, not a command. She ignored it, leaning in until her lips were an inch from his, her breath warm and sweet with bourbon. You deserve better than this dump, James, she whispered. Let me show you. Then she kissed him, hard and deep, her tongue slipping past his lips like she owned him. His mug clattered to the floor, bourbon splashing across the wood, and his hands moved before he could think, grabbing her waist, pulling her closer. She tasted like trouble, and he was too far gone to care. She pushed him back against the sofa, climbing onto his lap, her dress hiking up as she straddled him. His shirt was off in seconds. She yanked it over his head, nails raking his chest, and her hands were everywhere, unbuttoning his jeans, tugging them down just enough. The room spun faster now, rain drumming outside, and all he could see was her, red hair falling in his face, her body moving against him, hot and urgent. She moaned soft and low, rocking her hips, and he groaned, caught in the haze of it all. His fingers dug into her thighs, her skin smooth under the dress, and for a moment, he wasn't in Terre Haute anymore. He was back in Detroit, king of the world, untouchable. It was over quick, a blur of heat and sweat. She rode him until he couldn't hold on. his breath ragged, her name slipping out before he could stop it. Then she slowed, leaning down to kiss him again, softer this time, like a reward. He collapsed back, chest heaving, the room tilting as the whiskey hit harder. Lena slid off him, adjusting her dress, and he barely registered her moving to the corner where their duffel bag sat, the one with Victor's cash. "Gotta run," she said, voice casual, like they'd just had coffee. "Take care, big shot." She grabbed her coat, and he heard the rustle of bills, but his eyes wouldn't focus. The door clicked shut, and she was gone, rain swallowing her footsteps. He didn't know how long he sat there, pants around his ankles, head pounding. The bulb flickered out, plunging the room into dark, and the cold crept in through the cracks. He pulled his jeans up, fumbling, and that's when he heard the Impala pull back into the drive. The engine cut off, and the door flew open. Sasha stood there, rain dripping off her jacket, her curls plastered to her face. Her eyes, dark and fierce, swept the room, landing on him. She froze, nostrils flaring, and he knew she smelled it before he could say a word. Bourbon, vanilla, Lena, the mug on the floor, the empty space where the duffel had been. She saw it all. "You fucked her, didn't you?" Her voice was low, deadly, trembling with something worse than anger. "Sasha, He stood, swaying, hands out like he could stop her from leaving again. "I was drunk. It didn't mean shit. I swear." She laughed, a sound that cut deeper than any scream. "Drunk? That's your excuse?" She stepped closer, eyes blazing, and he saw the hurt behind the fury, raw, bleeding. "I trusted you, James. After everything, Victor, Detroit, all of it. I trusted you." She grabbed the Jack bottle from the floor, still half full, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, glass and whiskey spraying everywhere, the sharp smell filling the air. "Sasha, please," he said, voice cracking. "She came here, I didn't—" "Save it, asshole." She turned, boots stomping toward the door. "You're a liar, and I'm done." She didn't look back, just walked out into the rain, slamming the door behind her. The Impala roared again, headlights slicing through the dark, and she was gone. James sank to the floor, glass crunching under his knees. The duffel was lighter. He stumbled over, unzipped it, and saw the gap where $5,000 used to be. Lena had played him, and he'd let her. His head dropped into his hands, rain pounding outside, and all he could think was how bad he'd fucked up. Sasha was his everything, his fire, his fight, and now she was out there, hating him because he'd been too drunk, too weak, to see what he had. The storm didn't let up, and neither did the ache in his chest. He didn't know where she'd gone, didn't know if she'd ever come back. All he knew was the rain kept falling, washing away the last shred of who he thought he was. The rusty nail wasn't much to look at. Squatting on a corner of Main Street in Terre Haute, it was a squat brick box with a neon sign that flickered more off than on, the N long dead. Inside, the air was a swamp of cigarette smoke and stale beer, the kind of place where the jukebox played Hank Williams on loop and nobody cared if your boots tracked mud across the sticky floor. It was a Wednesday night, the rain still hammering outside, turning the parking lot into a soup of gravel and puddles. James leaned against the bar, a lukewarm Bud Light in his hand, the bottle sweating as much as he was in the humid haze. He wasn't here to drink. Not really. He was here for Sasha. Downstairs, in the basement the bar owner rented out for cash under the table, she was putting on one of her underground fashion shows. Midnight Threads, she called it. She'd been at it for weeks, stitching late into the night at their rickety kitchen table, turning thrift store scraps into something fierce. It was her hustle, her way of keeping them afloat while they figured out what the hell to do with Victor's money and the ghosts chasing them from Detroit. The basement door creaked open, and a wave of noise spilled up. Hoots and hollers, the thump of bass from a cheap speaker setup. James straightened, peering through the smoky dimness as Sasha stepped onto her makeshift runway. She was a damn vision. Black bodysuit clinging to every curve, cut high on the hips to show off those legs that went on forever. Her skin like polished mahogany under the flickering lights. Her curls bounced wild and free. No McDonald's visor to tame them now, and she moved with a swagger that owned the room. The crowd, maybe 30 locals, punks with tattoos and girls in ripped fishnets, lost their minds, whistling and clapping as she hit her mark and struck a pose, one hand on her hip, chin up like she was daring anyone to say shit. James couldn't help the grin tugging at his mouth. That was his girl. Tough as nails, beautiful as hell, turning nothing into something every damn time. He took a swig of beer, the cold fizz cutting through the heat in his chest. She'd been distant since they got to Terre Haute, throwing herself into these gigs like they were her lifeline, and he got it. After Victor, after the warehouse fire, after everything, she needed this. Needed to prove she wasn't just some broke kid from Detroit anymore. But it stung, too. How she'd pull away when he tried to touch her. How she'd rather sew than talk about the cash or the future. He wanted to fix it, but he didn't know where to start. "Yo, she's killing it down there," a voice said beside him, rough and familiar. Malik Jackson slid onto the stool next to him, gold tooth glinting as he grinned. He'd shown up in Terre Haute a week after they did, claiming he'd ditched Detroit for good after the McDonald's brawl. James wasn't sure he bought it. Malik had a way of sniffing out trouble. But Sasha trusted him, and he'd been helping her pull these shows together. "Yeah, man," James said, eyes still on the basement door. "She's something else." Malik tipped his bottle of Miller Lite toward the stairs. "That's my girl. Told her she could turn this dump into her own damn runway, and look at her go." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "You good, though? You look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders." James shrugged, peeling the label off his bud with his thumbnail. "Just keeping an eye out. Victor's still out there, you know. Ain't letting my guard down." Malik nodded, sipping his beer. "Heard that. Dude's a fucking snake. But you two got this far. Lay low, stack some cash, you'll be all right." That was the plan, anyway. James glanced at the duffel tucked under the bar stool, the weight of it a constant reminder. 50 grand, or what was left after gas, rent, and food, wasn't enough to outrun Victor forever, but it was something, enough to keep them breathing while Sasha built her thing. He just wished she'd let him in on it more, instead of shutting him out like he was still the rich asshole who'd stumbled into her McDonald's a lifetime ago. The basement erupted again, louder this time, and Sasha strutted back into view, flipping her hair as she disappeared behind a tattered curtain. The crowd downstairs was eating it up, and James felt a flicker of pride mixed with something heavier. Worry, maybe. She was shining, but every light cast a shadow, and he couldn't shake the feeling one was creeping closer. "Yo, James!" A woman's voice cut through the bar noise, sharp and edged with a smirk. He turned, beer halfway to his mouth, and saw Tanya Washington, T, pushing through the crowd. She was Sasha's old high school buddy, a tall, wiry chick with a buzz cut and a chipped front tooth that showed when she grinned, which wasn't often. Tonight she wore a leather jacket over a tank top, her arms crossed like she was sizing him up. "T," he said, nodding. "What's up?" She stopped a foot away, eyes flicking from him to Malik and back. "What's up? Your girl's down there acting like she's some big shot now. That's what's up." Her tone was half tease, half bite, and James caught the jealousy under it. T had her own hustle, hawking handmade jewelry at flea markets, but Sasha's rise was rubbing her raw. "She's earning it," James said, keeping his voice steady. "You seen her work." T snorted, leaning against the bar. Yeah, I seen it. Seen her get lucky with you too, white boy. Don't act like she'd be here without that cash you're sitting on. She jerked her chin at the duffel, and James tensed, hand tightening on his bottle. Watch it, T. Malik cut in, his grin gone. Sasha's been grinding since day one. Ain't nobody handed her shit. T rolled her eyes, snagging a peanut from a bowl on the bar and popping it in her mouth. Whatever, man. She's still the same broke-ass girl from the east side, far as I'm concerned. Just got a fancier stage now. She chewed, staring James down. You better keep her in check, rich boy. She's climbing fast. Might leave your ass behind. James set his beer down, slow and deliberate, meeting her gaze. She's the real deal, T. You'd see that if you weren't so busy hating. His voice was low, but there was steel in it. He didn't like T much, never had. But she was Sasha's people, and he wasn't about to start shit in the middle of her night. T smirked, shrugging. We'll see how real she is when the spotlight fades. Catch you later. She sauntered off, disappearing into the crowd, leaving a sour taste in the air. Malik shook his head, sipping his Miller. She's just salty, man. Sasha's outshining her and T can't handle it. Yeah, James muttered, but his eyes drifted back to the basement door. T's words stuck, though. Sasha climbing, him holding her back. He didn't want to believe it, but the distance between them lately made it hard to shake. The bar door swung open, letting in a gust of wet wind, and James glanced over on instinct. A woman stepped in, shaking rain off her coat, and his gut tightened. Lena Voss. He'd seen her around town a couple times. Red hair, green eyes, always working some angle, but never this close to Sasha's turf. She scanned the room, her gaze landing on him for a split second before sliding away. Casual as hell. Too casual. She moved to a corner table, ordering a drink from the bartender like she belonged here, but James didn't buy it. Something about her screamed trouble, and he'd had enough of that to last a lifetime. You know her? Malik asked, following his stare. Nah, James lied, taking a long pull from his bud. Just another face. But he kept her in the corner of his eye, her red dress peeking out from under that coat, her legs crossed like she was waiting for something or someone. He didn't like it, not one bit. Downstairs, the music kicked up again, and Sasha's voice cut through, barking orders at her crew. Move that light, y'all. I ain't walking in the dark. The crowd laughed, and James felt that grin tug at him again. She was in her element, running the show like she'd been born for it. He wanted to go down there, tell her how damn proud he was. But T's jab and Lena's presence kept him rooted. Shadows were creeping in, and he couldn't tell if they were real or just the ghosts of Detroit playing tricks. The rain kept pounding, the jukebox switched to Johnny Cash, and James finished his beer, the bottle clinking empty on the bar. Sasha was shining bright, but every light drew eyes, some friendly, some not. And as Lena sipped her drink across the room, smirking like she knew something he didn't, James couldn't shake the feeling that the hustle was about to get a whole lot messier. The rain didn't let up. It battered Terre Haute like a grudge, turning the streets into rivers and the air into a thick, wet shroud. Inside the little wooden house on the edge of town, the damp had seeped into everything. The sagging floorboards, the peeling wallpaper, the tension hanging heavy between James and Sasha. It was past midnight, 3 days after that damn night with Lena, and the fight hadn't died down. If anything, it had gotten worse, festering like a wound neither of them knew how to stitch up. James sat on the sofa, elbows on his knees, staring at the duffel bag shoved under the milk crate. It was lighter now, $5,000 lighter, thanks to Lena's sticky fingers, and every time he looked at it, the guilt chewed him up a little more. He hadn't meant for it to happen. He'd been drunk, stupid, weak, and Lena had played him like a cheap guitar. But Sasha didn't care about excuses. She'd barely spoken to him since she stormed out that night, coming back only to grab clothes or crash on the mattress in the corner, as far from him as the tiny house allowed. The door creaked open, and he straightened, heart kicking up. Sasha stepped in, rain dripping off her jacket, her boots leaving muddy prints on the floor. She shook out her curls, water splattering, and didn't look at him, just headed straight for the kitchen counter, dropping a soggy paper bag that smelled like fries and grease. She'd been out all day, probably with Malik or at the Rusty Nail setting up her next show. Her silence was louder than any scream, and it cut deeper than he wanted to admit. "Sasha," he said, voice rough from disuse. "Can we talk?" She didn't turn around, just yanked a Coke from the bag and cracked it open, the hiss loud in the quiet. "Ain't nothing to talk about," she said, her tone flat, cold. "You made your choice." He stood, the sofa creaking under him, and took a step toward her. "It wasn't a choice, damn it. I was drunk. Lena showed up and I fucked up. I'm sorry, okay? How many times I gotta say it?" She spun then, eyes blazing, the Coke sloshing in her hand. "Sorry don't mean shit when you're balls deep in some chick, James. You think drunk fixes that?" Her voice cracked, and he saw the hurt flash across her face before she buried it under fury. "I gave you everything. My trust, my fight, all of it. And you shit on it." He flinched, hands balling into fists at his sides. "I know I fucked up, Sasha. I hate myself for it. But you don't mean nothing to me, you do. You're the only thing keeping me sane in this mess." She laughed, sharp and bitter, setting the Coke down hard enough to dent the can. "Sane? You call this sane? Hiding out in this shithole, jumping at every shadow 'cause Victor's still out there, and now you're screwing around behind my back? That's your version of sane?" She stepped closer, close enough he could smell the rain on her, the faint vanilla of her lotion under it. "I trusted you, man. After Detroit, after all that blood and fire, I thought we were solid." "We are," he said, desperate, reaching for her arm. She jerked back like his touch burned, and it stung worse than the slap he knew was coming if he pushed too hard. "Sasha, please. It was one dumbass mistake. I'd take it back if I could." Her jaw tightened, eyes glistening but hard as steel. "You can't. That's the problem. You don't get to undo sticking your dick where it don't belong." She turned away, grabbing the bag of fries and ripping it open, but her hands shook, betraying the calm she was trying to fake. "I'm out here grinding, pouring my soul into these shows, and you're—" "What? Drinking yourself stupid and letting some red-headed skank rob us blind?" "She played me," he said, voice low, hating how pathetic it sounded. "I didn't see it coming." "Yeah, well, I did." She shoved a fry in her mouth, chewing like it was personal. "I saw her sniffing around at the bar. Knew she was trouble. Should have known you'd fall for it." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing a tight circle. "I didn't fall for shit. I was wasted, Sasha. She showed up with bourbon, talking all that smooth crap, and I wasn't thinking straight. It wasn't about her. It was about me being a goddamn idiot." She didn't respond, just kept eating, staring at the counter like he wasn't there. The rain drummed harder outside, wind rattling the windows, and the silence stretched until it felt like a rope tightening around his neck. He couldn't stand it, couldn't stand her shutting him out, acting like he was already gone. "Look at me," he said, stepping closer again. "Please, Sasha. Yell, hit me, do something. Just don't freeze me out like this." She finally turned, eyes locking on his, and the raw pain in them hit him like a punch. "You don't get it, do you? This ain't just about Lena. It's about us. I thought we were building something, thought you had my back. But you're still that rich boy who thinks he can fuck up and say sorry like it's all good." She shook her head, voice dropping. "I don't know if I can do this anymore." His stomach dropped, cold and heavy. Don't say that. We've been through worse. Victor, the warehouse, all of it. We're stronger than this. Are we? She crossed her arms, fries forgotten. 'Cause right now I feel like I'm carrying us both, and you're just dragging me down. The words landed hard, and he didn't have a comeback. She was right. He'd been a mess since Detroit, clinging to her like she was his lifeline. But what had he given her back? A pile of cash he couldn't clean, and a night of betrayal she couldn't unsee. He opened his mouth to argue, but the sound of tires crunching gravel outside cut him off. Headlights flashed through the window, and Sasha tensed, peering out into the dark. "It's T," she said, relaxing a fraction. "Picking me up. I'm crashing at her place tonight." "Sasha, wait." He grabbed her wrist as she moved for the door, and this time she didn't pull away, just stared at his hand like it was a stranger's. "Let go," she said, quiet but firm. "I need space, James. I can't think straight with you right here." He dropped her arm, chest tight, and watched her grab her jacket. "How long?" "I don't know." She paused at the door, rain streaking the glass behind her. "Figure your shit out. I gotta figure mine." Then she was gone, stepping into T's beat-up Honda, the taillights fading into the storm. James stood there, the house empty again, the echo of her words ringing louder than the rain. He sank back onto the sofa, head in his hands, and didn't move until the buzz of his phone jolted him, a text from an unknown number. "You're slipping, Carver. She's too good for you." No name, but he didn't need one. "Lena." He hurled the phone across the room, screen cracking against the wall, and grabbed the duffel, checking it again like the money might magically reappear. It didn't. The next night, he was at the Rusty Nail again, drowning the ache in Bud Light and whiskey chasers. The bar was busier than usual, locals huddled over beers, the jukebox blaring some old Merle Haggard tune. He'd come to see Sasha, hoped she'd be downstairs running her show, but Malik said she'd taken the night off, still at T's. The rejection burned, and he was on his third drink when Lena slid onto the stool beside him, all red hair and sly smiles. "Rough week, huh?" she said, sipping a gin and tonic, her dress a deep green tonight, just as tight as the red one. "You look like hell." "Fuck off, Lena," he growled, staring into his glass. "You got what you wanted. Leave me alone." She laughed, low and throaty. "Oh, come on, big shot. Don't be mad. You had fun, didn't you?" Her hand brushed his arm, and he jerked away, spilling beer on the bar. "I said, get lost." His voice was hard, but she didn't flinch, just leaned closer, her perfume cutting through the bar stink. "She's done with you, man," Lena said, voice soft, like she cared. "Saw her storm out the other night. You're on your own now. Might as well stick with me. I don't judge." He turned, eyes narrowing. "You don't know shit about her, or us." "I know enough," she smirked, sipping her drink. "She's too proud to take you back. You're better off cutting loose." He shoved the bar stool back, standing so fast it scraped the floor. "I don't want you, Lena. Never did. Get that through your damn head." He threw a crumpled 10 on the bar and headed for the door, her laugh trailing him like a ghost. Outside, the rain hit him full force, soaking his jacket, but he didn't care. He needed air, needed to clear the fog of her words. Halfway to the Impala, headlights caught him, and he squinted as T's Honda rolled up. Sasha stepped out, rain plastering her hoodie to her frame, her face unreadable. She stopped a few feet away, hands stuffed in her pockets, and the bar door swung open behind him. Lena, watching from the threshold. "You're still chasing her?" Sasha yelled, voice cutting through the storm, her eyes flicking from him to Lena. She marched up, hand flying before he could react, the slap stinging his cheek. "After everything, you're still here with her?" "Sasha, no." He grabbed her shoulders, rain dripping off his chin. "I was telling her to fuck off. It was a mistake, I swear. I love you, damn it." She shoved him back, chest heaving. "Love me? You don't even know what that means." Her voice broke and she turned, running back to T's car, the door slamming as they peeled out. James stood there, soaked and shaking, Lena's laugh echoing from the bar. The cracks were splitting wide open, and he didn't know if he could hold them together anymore. The rain kept falling, washing away the last threads of hope he'd been clinging to. The rain had turned Terre Haute into a muddy hellscape, and the old factory on the outskirts was no exception. Its rusted skeleton loomed against the gray sky, broken windows gaping like empty eyes, the roof sagging under the weight of the storm. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp metal and rot, the drip, drip, drip of water echoing off the concrete floor. James stood just inside the busted doorway, his boots crunching on shattered glass, the Impala's keys still jangling in his hand. Beside him, Sasha shifted her weight, her hoodie soaked through, curls plastered to her neck. Her jaw was tight, eyes scanning the shadows, and the tension between them hummed louder than the rain outside. It had been a week since the slap at the rusty nail, a week of radio silence broken only by the buzz of his phone an hour ago. A text from Victor, short, ugly, straight to the point. "Got your girl Lena. Bring my money or she's done." Old factory, midnight. No games, no bullshit. James had shown it to Sasha at T's place, where she'd been crashing, expecting her to tell him to let Lena rot. But she'd surprised him, grabbing her jacket and muttering, "Let's go. I ain't letting that bastard win again." Now here they were, facing the devil they'd been running from since Detroit. James glanced at her, rain dripping off his nose. "You sure about this? We don't owe her shit." Sasha's eyes flicked to him, sharp and cold. "This ain't about Lena. It's about Victor. He don't get to keep coming for us." She pulled the duffel tighter over her shoulder, the cash inside a heavy reminder of why they were here. "You want to fix this mess? Start here." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. She was still pissed. Hell, she had every right to be. But she was here, with him, and that was something. He'd fucked up with Lena, let the whiskey and her smooth talk cloud his head, but he'd die before letting Victor take anything else from them. "All right. Let's do it." They stepped deeper into the factory, the dark swallowing them up. The only light came from a flickering lantern Victor had left burning, casting jagged shadows across the walls. In the middle of the open space, Lena sat tied to a rusted chair, her red hair tangled and streaked with dirt, her green dress torn at the hem. Her wrists were raw from the rope, and her head hung low, but she lifted it when she heard their footsteps, eyes wide and glassy. "James?" she croaked, voice hoarse. "Sasha?" Victor stepped out from behind a stack of crates, his leather jacket creaking, his scarred face twisted into a grin that didn't reach his eyes. He was bigger than James remembered, broader, meaner, like the months since Detroit had hardened him into something uglier. He held a phone in one hand, thumb hovering over the screen, and his other hand rested on Lena's shoulder, fingers digging in just enough to make her wince. "Well, well," he drawled, voice gravelly over the rain. "Look who finally showed up. The lovebirds and their little bag of tricks." His eyes locked on the duffel, and his grin widened. "You thought you could run with my money, princess? Thought I'd let that slide?" Sasha stepped forward, chin up, fearless even with the shadows closing in. "I'd rather rot than let you own me, Victor. You're a punk who can't let go." He laughed, loud and harsh, the sound bouncing off the walls. "Big talk for a girl who's been hiding like a rat. You and your boyfriend here." He nodded at James. "You're nothing without me. That cash, that's mine, and you're gonna pay for taking it one way or another." James clenched his fists, stepping up beside Sasha. Let her go, Vic. You want the money? It's right here. Take it and fuck off. Victor's grin faded, his hand tightening on Lena's shoulder. She whimpered, and he ignored it, eyes boring into James. You don't call the shots, Carver. Not anymore. You lost that when you let this bitch. He jerked his chin at Sasha. Drag you into the gutter. He tapped his phone, and a video flickered to life. Grainy, dark, but unmistakable. James and Lena on that sofa, her on top, the sounds muffled but clear enough. Sent this to a guy in Chicago. Big player in the underground scene. He's cutting your little fashion gigs off, Sasha. You're done. Sasha's breath hitched, but she didn't flinch. You think that breaks me? I've survived worse than your cheap-ass blackmail. Victor smirked, leaning down to Lena's ear. Tell him, sweetheart. Tell him how you tried to screw me over, too. Lena shook her head, tears streaking her face, but he squeezed harder, and she gasped. He caught me, she stammered, voice breaking. I took the cash, tried to run. He's been tracking you through me. James cursed under his breath, the pieces clicking. Lena hadn't just played him. She'd been a damn beacon, leading Victor straight to them. You set us up, he growled, glaring at her. No, Lena's voice cracked. I didn't mean... It was a mistake, James. I'm sorry. Shut up, Victor snapped, shoving her head down. He straightened, eyes on Sasha. You thought you could run, princess? You're mine now. Hand over the bag, or she's the first to pay. Sasha's hand tightened on the duffel, but before she could move, a shadow shifted behind Victor. Malik stepped out, his gold tooth glinting in the lantern light, a USB drive dangling from his fingers. His face was hard, no trace of the easy grin James knew. Not so fast, Vic, he said, voice low. You ain't the only one with dirt. Victor spun, eyes narrowing. The hell you doing here, Jackson? Malik held up the USB, stepping closer. Been digging, man. Found some shit you don't want out. Your deals, your suppliers, all the nasty little secrets you've been keeping. I was gonna sell it to you, but you fucked with my people. He glanced at Sasha, then James. This is me making it right. James stared, heart pounding. Malik had been in deep, too deep, and he hadn't seen it. You sold us out? He asked, voice tight. Was gonna, Malik admitted, not meeting his eyes. Victor paid me to keep tabs after Detroit, but I ain't letting him win this one. He tossed the USB to Sasha, who caught it one-handed, her expression shifting from shock to steel. What's this? She asked, holding it up. Everything, Malik said. Enough to bury him if it gets to the right hands. Victor's face darkened, his hand dropping from Lena to his pocket, where James knew he kept a gun. You're dead, Jackson, all of you. He took a step, but Sasha moved faster, unzipping the duffel and pulling out a stack of cash, holding it up like a shield. You want this? She said, voice steady. Take it. But you're done coming for us. You hear me? Victor hesitated, eyes flicking between the cash and the USB, calculating. The rain pounded louder, a gust of wind howling through the broken windows, and James saw the crack in the bastard's armor. Fear, just for a second. You're playing a dangerous game, girl, Victor said, but his voice wasn't as sure. I've been playing since the day I met you, Sasha shot back, and I'm still standing. Malik stepped up beside her, hands raised. Walk away, Vic. You don't want this shit hitting the streets. Feds'll love it. Victor's jaw worked, his hand twitching toward his pocket, but he stopped. The lantern flickered, throwing his shadow long and jagged, and for a moment, James thought he'd snap, pull the gun, end it right there. But then he laughed, a low, ugly sound, and stepped back. Keep your trash, he said, nodding at the cash. But this ain't over. He turned, shoving Lena's chair so hard she tipped sideways with a yelp, and stalked into the dark, his boots echoing until the rain swallowed them. James rushed to Lena, cutting the ropes with his pocket knife, her wrists bleeding where they'd chafed. She slumped against him, sobbing, and he helped her up, her weight heavy in his arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice raw. "I didn't mean for this." Sasha stood over them, USB in one hand, cash in the other, her face unreadable. "You're a damn fool, Lena," she said, but there was no heat in it, just exhaustion. She looked at James, then Malik. "We're getting out of here. Now." They piled into the Impala, Lena shivering in the back, Malik shotgun, Sasha behind the wheel. The engine growled to life, tires spinning in the mud as she floored it, the factory shrinking in the rear view. James sat beside Lena, his mind racing. Victor was still out there, but they had a weapon now, a chance. And Sasha was here, fighting with him, even if she wouldn't look at him. The rain kept falling, washing the night clean, but the cracks weren't gone, just patched, waiting to see if they'd hold. The old factory felt like a tomb, its rusted walls closing in as the rain hammered down outside. The air inside was thick, heavy with the stink of wet concrete and the faint tang of rust, every drip from the leaking roof echoing like a countdown. James stood near the busted doorway, his boots scuffing the gritty floor, rain dripping off his jacket. Sasha was beside him, her hoodie dark with water, the USB from Malik clutched tight in her fist. Her breaths came fast, shallow, her eyes locked on Victor across the dim space. Lena was still slumped in that rusted chair, ropes loose around her wrists now, her red hair a tangled mess over her tear-streaked face. The lantern flickered between them all, throwing wild shadows that danced like ghosts. Victor paced slow and deliberate, his leather jacket creaking with every step, his scarred face twisted into a sneer. He held his phone up, the screen glowing with that damn video, James and Lena on the sofa, blurry but unmistakable, the sounds muffled but sharp enough to cut. "You see this?" he said, voice low and venomous, tapping the screen. "Send it to a guy in Chicago. Big shot in the underground scene. He's got pull, Sasha. Your little fashion gigs? Done. Nobody's touching you now." Sasha's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. "You think that breaks me?" Her voice was steady, fierce, cutting through the damp air. "I've survived worse than your petty-ass games, Victor. You're a coward hiding behind a phone." He laughed, a rough bark that bounced off the walls, and stopped pacing, looming over Lena. She shrank back, her hands trembling where they rested on her lap. But he didn't touch her this time, just let his shadow fall over her like a threat. "Coward, huh? That's rich coming from a chick who's been running since Detroit. You and your boyfriend." He jerked his head at James. "You're nothing without me. That cash you stole, that's my blood, my hustle, and now you're gonna pay." James took a step forward, fists clenched, the anger boiling up hot and fast. "You're done, Vic. We've got the money. We've got your dirt. Walk away before this gets uglier." Victor's eyes narrowed, his hand twitching toward his pocket where James knew the gun sat. "Ugly? You don't know ugly, Carver. I'll ruin her life." He pointed at Sasha. "Every gig, every dime, gone. And you?" He smirked. "You'll be begging me to take you back when she's done with your sorry ass." Lena's voice broke the standoff, small and shaky. "He forced me, Sasha." She lifted her head, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on her cheeks. "After I took the cash, he caught me, tracked you through me. I didn't mean for this. I'm sorry." Her words cracked, and she dropped her gaze, shoulders shaking. Sasha's eyes flicked to her, then back to Victor, something hard settling in her expression. "You're a damn fool, Lena," she said, no warmth in it, just raw truth. But he's the real snake here. Victor snorted, tapping his phone again. Keep talking, princess. I've got more where this came from. Pictures, recordings, all of it. One click, and your whole world's ash. Hand over that USB and the cash, or I burn it all down. James felt the air shift, the weight of it pressing on his chest. He glanced at Sasha, saw the fire in her eyes, and knew she wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. Use it, he said, voice low, urgent. End him. She didn't hesitate. She pulled a beat-up laptop from the duffel, some old thing she'd scavenged from a pawn shop weeks ago, and flipped it open, fingers flying over the keys. Victor frowned, stepping closer, his hand sliding into his pocket. The hell you doing? Checkmate, Sasha said, not looking up, her voice calm but edged with steel. She plugged the USB in, the screen lighting her face in a cold blue glow. My mom was a coder, taught me a few tricks before she got sick. You think you're smart with that phone? Watch this. James watched, heart pounding, as lines of code scrolled fast, too fast for him to follow. Malik stepped up beside her, his gold tooth glinting as he leaned in. You got this, girl. Send it. Victor's sneer faltered, his hand freezing halfway out of his pocket, the gun's outline clear against the leather. What's that supposed to do? You think some geek shit's gonna stop me? Sasha hit a key hard and looked up, her eyes locking on his. Just sent every dirty deal you've ever made. Suppliers, payoffs, all of it, to the feds. Anonymous email, untraceable. You're fucked, Vic. For a second, nobody moved. The rain pounded louder, a gust rattling the broken windows, and then Victor's phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at it, his face paling as he read the screen. Boss, feds are on us. A voice crackled through, panicked and loud. They've got warrants. Everything's blowing up. Victor's eyes widened, the sneer gone, replaced by something raw fear, pure and ugly. Pure and, you little bitch, he hissed, lunging toward Sasha. But she stepped back, laptop clutched to her chest, unflinching. You're done, she said, voice rising over the storm. Run while you can, motherfucker. They're coming for you. He froze, chest heaving, his hand gripping the phone so tight the screen cracked. The lantern flickered, throwing his shadow wild across the floor, and James saw the moment it hit him. The game was over. Victor's empire, his threats, all of it crumbling under Sasha's fingers. He pointed at her, trembling. This ain't over. You'll pay for this. But his voice shook, and when the faint wail of sirens cut through the rain, distant but closing, he bolted, shoving past Lena's chair and disappearing into the dark, his boots slapping wet concrete until the sound faded. James exhaled, the tension draining out of him like water through a sieve. He turned to Sasha, her face lit by the laptop's glow. And damn if she didn't look like a warrior. Fierce, unbreakable, the kind of woman who'd stare down hell and win. You did it, he said, voice rough with awe. You buried him. She shut the laptop, tucking it back in the duffel, and met his eyes. We did it. But don't think this fixes us. Her words were sharp, but softer than before, and she didn't pull away when he stepped closer. Lena stumbled to her feet, ropes falling loose, and grabbed Sasha's arm, her voice a ragged whisper. I was wrong, Sasha. He ruined me too, used me up and threw me away. I'm so sorry. Her green eyes were wide, pleading, and for once, James believed her. Sasha looked down at her, then pulled her arm free, gentle but firm. We're done here, she said, not cruel, just done. She turned to Malik. You good? He nodded, shoving his hands in his pockets. Yeah, I owed you that one. Let's bounce. They moved as a unit, James helping Lena to the Impala, Sasha leading the way, Malik trailing behind. The rain hit them full force outside, cold and relentless, but it felt different now, like it was washing something away. Sasha slid behind the wheel, engine growling as she cranked it, and James climbed in beside her, Lena and Malik in the back. The tires spun in the mud, then caught, and they peeled out. The factory shrinking in the rear view, its lantern glow fading to nothing. The sirens grew louder, red and blue lights flashing somewhere down the road, but Sasha didn't slow. She gripped the wheel, eyes straight ahead, and James watched her, the weight of the night settling in. Victor was running, Lena was broken, and they had a shot, a real shot, to leave this shit behind. But her words echoed, "This don't fix us." He reached for her hand, hesitant, and she didn't pull away, just let his fingers brush hers, warm against the cold. "Where we going?" Malik asked from the back, voice tired. "Away," Sasha said, simple and sure. "Far as this tank'll take us." James leaned back, the hum of the engine steady under the rain's roar. They'd beaten the devil tonight. Not with fists, but with Sasha's brain and a hell of a lot of guts. And as the Impala cut through the storm, he felt it. A crack closing, not healed, but held together by something stronger than he'd dared hope. 5 years can change a lot. The rain that once chased James and Sasha through Terre Haute was a distant memory now, replaced by the warm Tennessee sun spilling over the rolling hills of outer Nashville. Their new home sat on a quiet acre off a winding road, a modest white ranch house with a wraparound porch, the paint fresh enough to gleam, the yard dotted with wildflowers Jada had insisted on planting. The Impala, patched up and repainted a deep blue, rested in the gravel drive, a testament to the miles they'd put behind them. Inside, the smell of smoked ribs and cornbread wafted from the kitchen, mixing with the twang of a Luke Combs song, drifting from a beat-up radio on the counter. James leaned against the porch railing, a cold, sweet tea in his hand, watching the late afternoon light play across the grass. He wore a faded Titans t-shirt and jeans, his hair a little longer now, streaked with a few grays he blamed on the kids. At 39, he didn't look like the millionaire who'd once owned Detroit's skyline. Didn't feel like him either. That guy was gone, traded for a quieter life fixing cars at a shop he'd opened downtown, Carver's Garage, where grease-stained hands and a steady paycheck felt more real than any boardroom ever had. The screen door squeaked, and Sasha stepped out, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her curls pulled back with a scrunchie. She was in a tank top and cut-off shorts, her skin glowing under the sun, that thorny vine tattoo still snaking down her collarbone. 5 years had softened some of her edges, motherhood did that. But the fire in her dark eyes hadn't dimmed. She'd built Midnight Soul from nothing, turning her underground gigs into a legit fashion line that sold out at boutiques across the South. Nashville loved her. Hell, the whole damn state did. And James couldn't blame them. "Ribs are almost done," she said, leaning beside him, her shoulder brushing his. "Jada's setting the table, but Miles keeps stealing the napkins." James chuckled, taking a sip of tea. "That boy's got your hustle. Gonna be trouble." She smirked, nudging him with her elbow. "Takes after his daddy, too. Can't keep his hands to himself." He grinned, the old ache from Terre Haute a faint scar now. "Yeah, well, I learned my lesson." He slid an arm around her waist, pulling her close, and she didn't pull away, just rested against him, her warmth steady under the fading sun. Inside, the chaos of dinner prep spilled out through the open window. Jada, 4.5, bossed her little brother around with the authority of a tiny queen. "Miles, put that back. We need 6 napkins, not 4. Her voice was high and clear, her braids bouncing as she darted around the dining room. She had Sasha's eyes and James's stubborn jaw, a mix of them both that showed in her quick wit and the crayons she kept stashed in every pocket. Miles, 2 and change, giggled as he toddled after her, a napkin clutched in his chubby fist, his curly mop of hair a wild halo. He was all energy, all mischief, and already talking circles around kids twice his age. The screen door banged again, and Lena Voss stepped onto the porch, a pitcher of lemonade in her hands. Her red hair was shorter now, chopped into a sleek bob, and she wore a simple sundress, white, no flash, a far cry from the tight numbers she'd flaunted in Terre Haute. 5 years had changed her too. After Victor's empire crumbled, thanks to Sasha's email to the feds, she'd hit rock bottom, disappearing for a while before showing up in Nashville 2 years back, clean and quiet, asking for a job. Sasha had given her one, against James's grumbling, and now Lena managed Midnight Soul's flagship store downtown. Her sharp mind turned to schedules and sales instead of schemes. "Kids are wild tonight," Lena said, setting the pitcher on the porch table. "Jada's got Miles running laps in there." Sasha laughed, soft and real. "She's the boss. Always has been." Lena smiled, a small thing, and glanced at James. "You good out here?" "Yeah," he said, nodding. "Just soaking it in." There was no heat between them now, no shadow of that night, just a cautious peace they'd all carved out over time. "Dinner's ready," Jada's voice rang out, and they filed inside, the house alive with noise and warmth. The dining room was simple. Wood table, mismatched chairs, a vase of wildflowers Jada had picked that morning. Sasha brought out a platter of ribs, glistening with sauce, and a bowl of cornbread, steam curling up into the air. James carried the mashed potatoes, Miles clinging to his leg like a koala, giggling as he tried to shake him off. They sat, James at one end, Sasha at the other, Jada and Miles between them, Lena across from the kids. Plates clinked, forks scraped, and the chatter started fast. Jada launched into a story about a bird she'd seen at preschool, her hands waving like she was directing traffic. "It was blue, Daddy, and it flew right over the slide. I think it's a superhero bird." James grinned, cutting a rib for Miles. "Superhero, huh? Did it have a cape?" "No, but it should," Jada said, serious as hell, and Sasha laughed, shaking her head. Miles, mouthful of mashed potatoes, piped up. "Bird, fly!" He flapped his arms, nearly knocking his cup over, and Lena caught it just in time, her reflexes sharp. "Easy, little man," she said, ruffling his hair. "You're gonna take off yourself." Sasha watched her, a flicker of something soft in her eyes, and James caught it. Lena had changed, slowly, painfully, but real. She'd owned her mistakes, worked her ass off to prove it, and when Sasha asked her to be Jada and Miles's godmother last year, she'd cried harder than James had ever seen. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, just a new start, one they'd all stumbled into together. "So, Mommy," Jada said, turning to Sasha with those big eyes, "were you a superhero? Like when you and Daddy ran away?" Sasha paused, a rib halfway to her mouth, and glanced at James. He smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Go on, tell her. She's old enough." Sasha set the rib down, wiping her hands on a napkin. "Nah, baby. I wasn't a superhero, just a fighter. Me and your daddy. We had some tough times, running from bad folks, figuring out how to stay safe. Took a lot of guts, but we made it." Jada's eyes widened. "Bad folks? Like monsters?" "Sorta," James said, cutting in. "But your mom was smarter than all of them. Beat him without even throwing a punch." Miles clapped his hands, mashed potatoes flying. "Mommy smart?" "Yeah, she is," Lena said, her voice quiet but sure. She looked at Sasha, then the kids. "You saved me too, you know. These little ones. They're my light now." Sasha met her gaze, a nod passing between them. "We all get second chances," she said, simple and true. "Took me a while to see that." James reached under the table, squeezing her knee, and she let him this time, her hand resting on his for a moment. The meal went on, laughter, spilled lemonade, Jada demanding seconds on cornbread. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the sky orange and pink, a far cry from the gray storms of Terre Haute. Later, after the kids were tucked in, Jada with her crayons, Miles with his stuffed truck, James and Sasha sat on the porch swing, the night air cool and sweet with honeysuckle. Lena had gone home, promising to bring cupcakes for Miles's birthday next week. The stars were out, bright against the dark, and the crickets sang a lazy tune. 5 years, James said, rocking the swing with his foot. "Feels like a damn dream sometimes." Sasha leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. "Yeah, thought we'd never make it out of that rain." He kissed her temple, breathing her in, vanilla, smoke, home. "You did, though. Built all this." "We did," she corrected, her voice soft but firm. "Took time, but we got here." He nodded, the weight of those years settling. Detroit, Victor, Lena, the fights, the nights he thought he'd lost her. They'd patch the cracks, not with words, but with work, with trust rebuilt slow and steady. Jada and Miles were proof of that, their little miracles born from the ashes. "Love you," he said, quiet, meaning it more than ever. She turned, kissing him slow and deep, her hand on his chest. "Love you too. Took you long enough to figure it out." He laughed, pulling her closer, and they sat there, the swing creaking under them, the night wrapping them up like a promise kept. The rain was gone, the sun was theirs, and whatever came next, they'd face it together. That's a wrap, y'all. What a journey. Subscribe and comment. What's your favorite moment? Thanks for riding with me.